Welcome, everyone. My name is Christine Champion, and I am the head of marketing here at Convirza. Thanks for joining us. So today's topic is smarter PPC ad spending. So oftentimes, when we're tracking our advertising and ROI through our online conversions, it's a fairly transparent process. But when it comes to tracking our offline campaigns, like lead calls, that's where we can tend to have a blind spot. So we've partnered up with StubGroup for some expertise on this topic today. So we're excited to have John Horn here. John Horn is the CEO of StubGroup. John lives and breathes PPC and has taught Google advertising classes to over 45,000 students, which is pretty impressive. His company is a premier Google partner, and they rank in the top 1% of all Google partners worldwide. So welcome, John. We're thrilled to have you here today.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to be here.
Hey, all right. So I'm going to go over a little bit of the agenda. So I'm going to be just covering, quick intro on Convirza, who we are and what we do for those of you that aren't familiar with us. And then John's going to jump in and cover the rest of these bullet points, which, how do you effectively lead call routing? How do you identify which calls are valuable? How do you import call data into Google Ads? And how do you leverage that call data for bidding strategies? And then certainly last but not least, how do you leverage all that data that we're talking about to prove the value of your PPC advertising to stakeholders? We're also going to set aside some time to have some Q&A. So if you do have questions, please put them in the chat box, and then we'll be sure to cover them at the end of the session. John's also going to be going through a couple polling questions. So we're actually going to go through and we're going to test that functionality out right now. So you'll have about 30 seconds to answer each question. So if everybody wouldn't mind, as much as I appreciate everybody tuning in, I'm guessing there are other places you'd rather be. So where would you rather be right now? Would you rather be sightseeing in Barcelona, sipping a pina colada in Hawaii, hiking at Yosemite, or boating on Lake Como? All right, so the poll is open. Hopefully everybody's seeing it. John, where would you rather be?
I've got to say that Barcelona sounds pretty sweet right now.
Yeah, I'd agree, but I'm going to go with boating on Lake Como. I've always been a lake girl and I'm part Italian, so. All right, so I'm just going to close out poll in a few seconds, and let's see what our top choices. All right, so number one answer looks like almost a tie. Sipping a pina colada in Hawaii. Oh, we got a lot of hikers here, hiking in Yosemite. Awesome. All right. So let me just take a few minutes to talk about Convirza for those of you who aren't familiar with us. So Convirza is a SaaS, let me go ahead and, sorry, I'm going to close this poll. All right, so Convirza is a SaaS software company, and we have been tracking, recording, and analyzing calls for more than 20 years. So we provide a few things. So the first thing we provide is call tracking. So we can tell you when ad campaigns are which of your ad campaigns and which of your keywords generate phone call leads and conversions, so that way you can better allocate your marketing dollars. And then the second thing we do is conversation analytics. So we'll actually record your calls, and we will leverage voice recognition technology to decode what's happening on the calls. So we can, tell you things like lead scoring. So we can score leads. We can even score your sales agents or your customer service reps to identify areas where they might need training. We can also detect if an appointment was booked, or if a sale was made, or even if there was a missed opportunity that you might need to follow up on. So that covers my broad interview of Convirza. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pass over the torch to John. So John, you can take it away.
Awesome. I am excited. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared here. And I'm really excited about this opportunity to chat through call tracking because it's something that I am very passionate about. We've been doing this for clients here at StubGroup for pretty much ever since we started, and it's something that has allowed us to prove so much value to our clients, do a better job in running and optimizing their campaigns, and so many more things. So I'm going to go ahead and without further ado, jump on here into things and walk you through some of the tactics, tips, strategies that we have figured out over the years to help our clients leverage call tracking. So right out of the gate, one of the big things that you can do with call tracking is that call routing side of things, making sure that those phone calls that are being generated from pay-per-click campaigns, whether that be Google Ads or Microsoft Advertising, other platforms, making sure those go to the right team members. So what a lot of businesses do, what I'll see, is they've got lots of different services, products that they sell through their website, lots of different campaigns running. They're sending traffic to their website, but they're using the same phone number on that website regardless of where people came from. And so when a customer calls that number, they're either going to get a sales rep who may or may not be the best person to talk about the specific service the customer is looking for, or maybe they get a phone tree that will help get them to the right place. But phone trees are not the best experience, and customers would much rather just immediately talk to somebody. So one of the things that some of our clients do is we're able to actually customize where we're sending calls to based upon what campaign someone is clicking through to reach a website. A good example of how we can leverage this type of software and work is our client, Beverly Hills Jewelers. You'll see their homepage here on my screen. And they are a jeweler in Beverly Hills. They have a physical location there, and then they also sell jewelry through their website. And they also purchase gold, silver jewelry, etc., from people who come into the shop to sell that to them. So they have team members who specialize in selling, and they have team members who specialize in buying. So one thing that we can do with the campaigns we run is we can actually have different phone numbers appear on the website based upon what specific ads, say on Google, that we're running for the client, someone clicked through on. And if someone is looking to sell gold or silver, then we can make sure they get immediately to the person who is best suited to answer that call. Or if they're looking to buy an engagement ring, we can get them to a jeweler to help them out with that. And this type of approach and thing can be translated across many different types of businesses, websites, and ultimately it's all about getting the customer to the best person as fast as possible so that you have the highest chance of closing that sale. Another thing that you can do with that routing side of things is tracking success per campaign. And this is something I'll get into in a lot more detail when it comes to actually importing call data back into Google Ads. But even if you don't want to get that granular with your reporting or invest the time and energy into doing that, you can at the very least assign different phone numbers per different types of campaigns that you're running on the search engines or Facebook or wherever, and be able to see exactly how many phone calls are coming from that campaign, which phone calls, how many relevant calls are they turning into leads, are they turning into sales, and then compare that to your cost across those different campaigns, different platforms, and figure out what your true ROI is from different campaigns and see, hey, where should we spend more money? Where is it working effectively? Where should we cut back where it's not working well? So those are a couple ways that we like to use call tracking for our clients. Another favorite thing that I like to talk about is you have all of this data when you are tracking the calls you're driving for a client, or if you're an advertiser and you're just tracking your own calls, you're getting recordings of those conversations with those customers, with those clients who are calling in. And obviously there's some fantastic tools that Convirza offers to be able to rate and score calls and do customer service analysis and quality control and stuff like that. But one of the things that I love doing with that data is understanding what words are your customers using when they're describing your business or their problem or the reason they're reaching out to you, and what are their pain points. Are they have they been burned by other companies, and so your credibility really matters to them? They're trying to figure out, hey, is this a legit company? Or are they just looking for the best price? Are they caring about shipping time? Or whatever the case may be, whatever type of business you have, your customers are going to be telling you what they actually care about. And then you should be taking that information, taking those pain points, and using that to create emotionally compelling ad copy on Google, Facebook, etc., so that you can speak to exactly what your customers are worried about, concerned about, what's getting them on the phone with you. Or if they're asking lots of questions that you could maybe answer proactively in your ad copy or on your website, you can do that as well. So you can either cut down on those calls or give them the information they need without having to place a phone call, so that they are going to be even more likely to go through and complete that conversion action on your website. So I love doing that. I also find it super helpful to use that call data, those call recordings for quality control on our own marketing campaigns for our clients, and maybe promotions we're running for them. A couple scenarios I see a lot of times is a customer will call through one of the ads we're running for a client, and they'll say, hey, I saw this promotion you're running, 10% off, can I get that? And the sales rep who takes that call says, I don't know what that is. We're not running a 10% off offer. And in that scenario, there's usually one of two things happening. Either the client ended an offer and never let us know, so we never updated the ad copy, or this sales rep hasn't been instructed to know what special offers are being run. And so we're able to take that call recording, for example, to the client and say, hey, what's going on? Do we need to change our ad copy, or do you need to give some further instruction to the sales rep? And then we're able to fix that problem and make sure the next customer's experience is as good as possible. One other thing that we do often with call rating or see happen a lot of the time is when we're running competitor conquest campaigns, which that's fancy terminology for targeting people, for example, on Google. Say they're looking for your competitor. Say you're a plumber, you're Bill Schmo Plumbing, and your competitor is Joe Schmo Plumbing, and you target people who are typing Joe Schmo Plumbing into Google, and your ad comes up to say, hey, need some plumbing help? Call us today for help. And people will call through there. Sometimes they may mistakenly think that you are your competitor because people don't read ads most of the time, for what I learned. So they just tap the first thing that they see. And if that happens, if you have a customer service agent or a sales rep who doesn't really know what's going on, they're going to answer that call and say, oh, nope, sorry, we're not Joe Schmo Plumbing, you got the wrong number. And that's where the conversation ends. What you want to happen, though, is you want to take that opportunity and say, oh, actually, nope, we're not Joe Schmo Plumbing, but since we're on the phone, do you have a problem with your pipes? Do you need someone to come out and take a look? We've got someone available right now I can send over. And you turn that conversation into a sale because you've got someone on the line who probably needs what you're selling. And so we're able to take those types of call recordings to clients and say, hey, please train your team to be able to handle this type of phone call so that these campaigns we're running for you can turn from generating a bunch of quote unquote wrong numbers to actually sending a bunch of successful orders and being able to grab some of that business that exists. So there's a couple of my favorite ways to use the call recording side of things to make the customer journey better, make your ad copy more engaging. I'd love to throw out another poll now. I'm really curious, people attending here, what type of business do you work at? You were at an agency, in the kind of retail e-commerce space, maybe the home services place, maybe got Bill Schmo Plumbing on the line, or professional services or something else. All these tactics I've talked about and we'll be talking about, they're all really relevant to any of these types of businesses, anywhere where you are taking phone calls and need data about those phone calls, need to connect that back to marketing campaigns. But yeah, I'd love to see what the makeup of our audience today looks like.
All right, that should be up for everybody. We'll just leave it up for another 20 seconds.
Fantastic. And I will say, yeah, good.
I was going to say to your, on that last slide, you made a good point that oftentimes there's kind of a disconnect between, ad campaigns that our marketing is putting out and then, the salespeople that are answering the phone call. So you're exactly right. And one of the cool things we have in our call tracking product is something called Call Whispers, where you can actually, set up an internal message so that before that salesperson picks up, it can say, this caller is from, XYZ, PPC ad campaign. So that's, to kind of reiterate what you're saying, you have these cool tools to be able to connect different silos within an organization. So you're all working together for your leads and your advertising.
Yeah, that's an awesome feature, making sure that internally you've got the info that you need to be able to handle that call the best way possible.
Yeah, so okay, we close that and then we'll share. We'll see, looks like 50% agencies, 13% retail e-commerce, 13% home services, 25% professional services, and then nothing from others. All right,
very cool. So lots of people from my side of the world, and also good diversity outside of that. It's exciting to see. All right, let me go on to my next slide here. All right, so when it comes to tracking calls, there are decisions that have to be made. what calls do you want? What calls are valuable? What calls should you be connecting as valuable back to your marketing campaigns? And this is actually one of my pet peeves when leads come to us. They're looking to work with StubGroup, and we'll typically do a free evaluation of whatever existing advertising they have to take a look and see, are they doing a good job, poor job? Can we make their life better? So forth and so on. And I have done probably thousands of those over the years. And one of the things I see most often is if they are doing any kind of call tracking, they are probably only doing what I call threshold call tracking, where they're tracking, hey, if a call is over, for example, 60 seconds, we'll count that as a conversion. If it's not, if it's under 60 seconds, it's not a conversion. And that's better than nothing. There are certainly helpful signals about the length of a phone call that say whether or not there's a conversation taking place or not. And sometimes if you have, such a massive volume of phone calls coming in that it's impossible to really, rate those, have people listening or handling those in a scalable fashion, sometimes you got to live with that. But most of the time, that's not true. And it's very doable to actually be listening to, rating those calls, and identifying which ones are valuable and which ones aren't. And so one of the first things we'll do when a client comes to us in that situation is we'll say, hey, we've got a call rating team. We're actually going to be listening to those phone calls we're driving for you, and we're going to be identifying which ones are truly valuable for you, which ones are leads or orders, and then which ones are spam or robots or wrong numbers, fill in the blank. And you'd be surprised how many irrelevant calls come in that will actually meet whatever threshold, whatever time threshold a client may have dictated. It could be a robot voicemail that goes on for 3 minutes long. It could be so many things, a wrong number where the conversation takes a while. And so what we do is we identify just those relevant calls, leave out all the irrelevant ones, anything that should not be counted as a lead. And then that is what we are able to report on to our client, as well as actually import back into a Google Ads account to associate with the keywords, the campaigns, the ads that are driving those phone calls. And I'll get to exactly how we do that a little bit later, and some of the additional benefits that come from that. But that's a really, really big deal when it comes to looking at the true success or cost per call, cost per conversion for campaigns. The other side of things that is kind of what I call an age-old debate in our space is customer service calls. Do you want calls from people who are current customers? Do you want to be showing them ads to drive those calls? And usually this translates into the bigger conversation of, should you show ads to people who are looking for your name on Google, for example? Should you run branded campaigns? So on the one side of that camp, you've got people saying, no, I don't want to show ads to people looking for my name because they already know how to find me. They can click for free on my organic listing, or they can type in my website, and that's wasted ad spend. And there's a lot of logic to that. Understand that side of thinking. But then on the other side, there's people who say, no, I definitely want to show ads to those people who are searching for me by name for a couple of reasons. Number one, my competitors are running those competitor conquest campaigns. So if I don't show up, likely Google's going to show an ad as the first thing someone sees in Google. And if that's not my ad, it's going to be a competitor's ad. And we're giving that opportunity for a current customer or someone who's looking to become a customer to click through to a competitor's website, spend time on theirs, see what they offer, go with them, either because they like what they saw in the ad, or going back to my other point, people don't read ads and they click the first thing that comes up. So they might not even realize until they get to the website that they haven't clicked on your website. So there's a lot of value from my perspective in running those branded campaigns. And then also along with that, you're able to really customize what messaging you're showing to those people who are seeing those or are searching for you by name. On the organic side of things, there's only so much you can do to change exactly what Google's going to say is your name of your website, your meta description, etc. With ads, you can say whatever you need to say, and you can offer, here's the latest promotion. You can send them to a better landing page than the home page to get them to convert, or to your current sales page or promotions, or whatever the case may be. You can show them what you need to show them and send them where they need to go, and maximize the opportunity of actually getting a click from that person as opposed to a competitor stealing that business away. Tying that back into the call tracking side of things, obviously you can keep a track and handle on how those branded campaigns are doing, and whether they are valuable in actually generating those new customers for you. Because if you're using that threshold call tracking side of things and just saying, hey, if it's 60 seconds or greater, that's a relevant call. Well, a lot of customer service calls are going to be longer than 60 seconds because you're working through an issue. So you might look like you have a fantastic cost per conversion from your branded campaign, but that's incredibly skewed because a lot of those are from existing customers. So you want to evaluate how many of those branded calls that came in are actually new customers who are most likely to go to a competitor if the competitor shows an ad as opposed to me. And then you can evaluate the true ROI of those branded campaigns that you might be running. All right, so this is a fun one because this is kind of the nitty gritty. How do you actually close that gap between Google campaigns that you run, Google Ads campaigns, for example, and this can also apply to Microsoft advertising and other platforms. But how do you connect the gap between those campaigns you're running and the actual calls that are coming into your call center? So you'll have your Google Ads account with all the information there. You'll have your call tracking account with all the information there. How do you actually close that gap in a way that's easy, simple, and gives you the data at your fingertips to be able to make decisions? That is done through offline conversion imports into Google, which is one of my favorite features that they offer. The way it works is if you capture the unique Google Click ID that Google appends to every single click on a Google ad, you then are able to import that along with a couple other pieces of information through spreadsheets or through automated integrations, depending on what system you're using, your CRM, etc. You can import that back into Google, and Google will, on their back end, take that unique ID and say, okay, so this call, this conversion, and any revenue associated with that conversion, which I'll get to in a second as well, that came from this click at this time, from this ad group, this campaign, this ad, and you can actually see right there in front of you within Google what's working to drive what you're counting as relevant phone calls and what's not driving those relevant phone calls. And there's so much you can do with that. I'll speak about that more in the next slide in terms of automated bidding strategies and reporting, but that is honestly part of our secret sauce for how we see a lot of success for our clients who are looking to drive a high volume of phone calls. That's one side of things. Another side of things that you can do with that call data that you're collecting is called customer match. Customer match is a feature Google offers where you can provide the phone numbers of your customers to Google, you can upload that into the Google Ads account, as long as you obviously have permission to do that, have certain privacy requirements, make sure all those things are checked off and taken care of. You can upload that information into Google, and then on Google's end, they look at the phone numbers you're uploading and they see, hey, who has Google accounts associated with that phone number? For example, a Gmail account or YouTube account, who has that phone number? And they're able to match and say, okay, here's a list of users. And they're not giving you those users' names or anything like that, but they're creating a list that you can target in the Google Ads account that matches the information that you've uploaded into the account. And you can use that for a variety of things. You can, if for example, maybe you only sell a product one time, you don't have a lifetime value from clients or customers. So once they purchase from you, you never want to show them an ad again. Well, you could exclude that list of existing customers from seeing your ads so that you don't waste money on getting those clicks that you know aren't going to drive you additional value. Or alternatively, what we'll see happen oftentimes is, let's say you sell a product where there's a massive amount of competition for this product, for people looking for this product, so much so that it doesn't make sense for you to really compete on that particular product and show ads on Google for that product because it's just too expensive, not high enough ROI. But let's say you also know that if someone has already purchased from you, so they're a past customer, and then they're looking for this product and they see that you sell this product, they're maybe 2, 3, 4 times more likely to purchase from you because they have that connection, they have an account, they know who you are, etc. So you could take that customer match list in Google Ads account and you could run what's called a remarketing list for search ads campaign, and you could show ads to people who only A, are on that list, and then B, are searching for those particular keywords. And then you can become profitable or competitive on services or keywords where maybe otherwise it wouldn't make sense because you're leveraging that customer match data. So like I said, when you're importing that conversion data into Google Ads, there is so much that you can do with that. First of all, just obviously manually, you can take a look at things at a high level and see what's working, what's not working, where should we move our budget around, where are we wasting money, what's effective. And in a similar way to that, if you are using an automated bidding strategy, it is even all that more important to be importing accurate conversion data because number one, Google is already heavily emphasizing automated bidding strategies, and they're only moving in that direction. Every month that passes, they get better, and they're more encouraged to use because they work better. So we're already using automation for many of our clients and continuing to expand that as the tools get better. But that automation looks at conversion data to say, oh, this is working well at this time, this date, this keyword, etc. Let's bid higher here, let's bid lower there. If you feed Google incorrect conversion data, then Google will make incorrect decisions about what it's worth to bid for your keywords, what traffic they should go after, and you can just start to get into this negative cycle of bad information equals bad results equals more bad information, and you can kill your campaigns. If you're giving the right information, only those calls that you actually want to drive, you're not counting those spam calls or robot calls or whatever else as conversions, and then you're also identifying how much revenue you're generating from specific calls, which is another thing that our call raters do when we're working with our clients. Is we'll say, okay, this call generated $1,000 in revenue. Let's upload that into Google Ads along with the conversion action data about that call. And then Google's able to see, oh, this call, $1,000 of revenue. If you're using a target return on ad spend strategy to tell Google, hey, I want to hit X percentage of return for my money, and then get me as many orders at that level as possible. Well, if they don't have that revenue information, they can't do that. They can't be properly aggressive with your campaigns. So for example, what I see all the time is e-commerce clients, they'll come to us to start working with us, and they're tracking in Google or Bing, etc., the revenue from orders that are placed online. And they've got that part of the gap connected, but they're also getting phone calls with orders, and there's no connector between that data and their Google campaigns. And we're able to create that connector and start that call rating, get that data imported on a regular basis into Google, and suddenly, number one, it looks like they're doing much better because historically they didn't know how many calls or how much revenue was coming from those phone calls. And then secondly, we're able to have Google get more aggressive in those areas that are working because we have that accurate information. And maybe historically it looked like 200% ROAS for this product, so we couldn't advertise. Well, now that we have phone call data, actually it's a 300% ROAS, and that's the client's goal. So let's keep going after that product. Let's keep advertising because we are profitably making money for the client through that. So that's just another example of why you need that really accurate, relevant call data imported on a regular basis into Google Ads to really supercharge those automated strategies as well as any manual analysis that you're doing in there. At the end of the day, let's kind of summarize some of the tactics and things here. Call tracking is something that we have found to be incredibly important and valuable with our relationships with our clients. Instead of having to go in a conversation with a client and say, well, I think you're getting a lot of phone calls from our campaigns, and I think they're good, I think they're relevant. You can say, hey, let's listen. We know all the calls we drove. We've got the recordings right here. We've already identified which ones are relevant, how much money you made from them initially, so forth and so on. And that can change that conversation with the client from things aren't going well, my report doesn't look good because it doesn't have call data, to, oh yeah, we're doing great. Here's the exact cost per conversion, cost per phone call, etc. And that's just a game changer when it comes to those conversations. And then we can focus that time on, okay, well, here's what we're doing to get you more of those relevant calls and to cut your ad spend where it's not working as well. You got the same thing if you're not an agency, if you're just an advertiser, whether it's just you in the company or you've got people you're reporting to, investors, marketing manager, whatever. At the end of the day, you've got to justify your marketing cost. And if you're driving phone calls, if you're trying to drive phone calls, you need to see that part of the pie, that puzzle piece, to justify that marketing expense to yourself, to stakeholders, and to say, hey, here's the actual ROI on this marketing. And if it's good, keep doing it. If it's bad, figure out how to fix it. If you can't fix it, stop it and try something else. But you can't do that without the data, and call tracking is how you get that side of the data when it comes to marketing campaigns and phone calls that you're driving. So almost to Q&A time here. I'm really curious to see what questions the team has. Before we get there, let me throw out one last poll here. Super simple. Are you currently using call tracking software? And if you are, there's still lots of ways to use it that you may or may not be using currently. Hopefully some of the ideas I've shared here will trigger some thoughts on your end about ways that you can keep leveraging this awesome software. Yeah, let's see here how many people are on board and how many are yet to join the party.
All right, we'll leave that up for another 20 seconds. And yeah, do you have some questions? I see one that came through so far. If anybody has a question, please put it in the chat box. I do have one question, John. So I'm familiar with automated bidding software and tools. Is that something that's now native in Google Ads, or is it all kind of, again, facilitated through like a third-party automated bidding tool?
Yeah, great question. There are a number of automated bidding strategies that are now native to Google. So a couple examples, you can tell Google, here's a return on ad spend that I want to hit. Example, 200% return on ad spend, and then Google is going to use that data, the conversion data, to try and get as many orders as possible at that level. I can also do target cost per conversion and several others as well that are all based upon conversions or even just maximizing clicks. There's a lot of different options you can take there.
Very cool. Yeah, it seems they're constantly, advancing everything there is in Google. It's like I have to take a class every day to keep up with it.
Exactly, every day's an adventure.
Yeah, so it looks like we have 70%, 71% are currently using call tracking, and 29% are not. All right.
Awesome.
Let's
to that
see.
71%, I'd say good job, and to the 29%, I'd say jump on board. I recommend it. It's going to make your life better.
All right, so let's see. We do have another 2 questions. So first is, can I import call data into platforms other than Google Ads?
Yes, great question. So Microsoft Advertising, which is Bing renamed to Microsoft Advertising, they do have very similar options as to Google. So you can, they have their own unique Microsoft Click ID that you can capture when someone gets to your website and calls, and you can import those conversions into Microsoft Advertising, their platform. Facebook is a little bit trickier. They do have some offline upload options, so you can figure it out. It's a little more complex, not always as reliable, but they do have, in theory, the ability to do that there as well. And those are the kind of the big 3 when it comes to platforms that drive calls. That's where I spend the majority of my time when I'm thinking through where we can see success for our clients. There's other things like Twitter and Pinterest and Quora and Reddit. There's lots of other platforms, but those generally don't have the technology built out quite as far as Google when it comes to closing that gap with offline conversions.
All right, and then the second question is, will Google let me import the last year of calls? So I'm guessing that's, historical calls, not just when you set up the new reporting and functionality.
Gotcha. Yeah. So if you were to start right now, create a conversion action, Google try to import past data. So Google, they have a limit on that. You can upload calls that are up to 90 days old. So short answer is no, you can't upload a year's worth of data if you haven't been doing it consistently. Long answer is you could upload the last 3 months worth of data. Then moving forward, you want to be sure you're doing it on a consistent basis so that you have that data as quickly as possible for the decisions you're making based upon that data in a Google account, for any automated bidding strategies that you're using, and so forth.
All right, excellent. Well, it looks like that concludes all the questions that came in. So John, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us today and giving us some tips. I definitely learned a few things, so I appreciate that. And thank you to everybody else for taking time out of their busy day to be with us. After this call, I'll be sending out a recording of this webinar, and then I'll also provide some contact information for John and myself if you should have any follow-up questions. So everybody have a great rest of your day, and again, thanks. Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.